You know, as the most grizzled member of this team, it interests me to see how this award began with the intention of telling the big story, the big picture of an emerging South Africa. And I think that we're seeing, as you suggested, the end of that.
I think so. If you look at, if you look at the criteria for the Alan Paton Award, it's the illumination of truthfulness, especially those forms of it that fly in the face of power, compassion, elegance of writing, and intellectual and moral integrity. But it's that flying in the face of power that came about in the late 80s and early 90s when that prize was established. And I think it's less about flying in the face of power now. But certainly in the early days of the Paton, that's what it was about.
Yes, and it was celebrating the people who did fly in the face of power, so that you did get the big biographies, you did get the big statements about politics, about unfair imprisonment, about the ANC.
And there was a lot of reportage.
Yes, indeed, and the big biographies came out. But I think that the Desmond Tutu biography that is out and on the list this year is kind of like the last cornerstone of that, would you say?
I think so. And we've seen them trickling down in the last couple of years. Ahmed Kathrada's been was as well. But I think we're coming to the end of those big ones. The hero stories, and I think they really are dying out, literally and figuratively. But I wonder whether it isn't something to do with where South Africa's moving on towards now. If you look at so many of the entries in the Alan Paton Award, and in fact that are on the shortlist, they're smaller stories, they're more personal stories. That's more about, if you look at Fred Kamalo's book, Touch My Blood, he gives a very, very revealing insight into life in the townships in the 80s. Very different from the heroic figure of Tutu.
Exactly. You had to be a hero to survive, standing up, but all kinds of other heroes are looking up. Looking back to last year's winners, Edwin Cameron, quite a heroic thing to be a gay white man in the ANC culture and to achieve the position and the eminence that he had. That was quite a strong statement as well. So that our concept of what a hero is, the hero of South Africa was Madiba.
Yes.
Now the heroes are smaller, down-to-earth people, the survivalists, and the people who are making micro changes that will later become the macro change.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, you know, the Mandela, the huge, enormous Mandela, the portrait was entered this year, and it didn't come near to the shortlist. Even though the essays that are contained within it are very, very beautifully written. Tim Cousins and Mike Nick have written the most beautiful essays in that book, but the judges didn't even consider the Mandela book.
Now that tells its own story.
Yeah.
That tells its own story. There's a hunger now for different things, like Ivan Vladislavich's story about Johannesburg. I mean, this is the city in which I grew up, and one is intrigued by the mystery and the fascination and the observations that he brings to it. He opens your eyes on the city in a very different kind of way. And I think that that's what we're doing. We're kind of settling into this new South Africa. We're kind of saying, okay, so where do we go from here? Because those old figures are now old and going out, and the new power struggles. I mean, as we say this, as we have this conversation, Helen Zille is a new head of the DA. Now, I mean, that speaks volumes as well of the whole thing.
And it's a profound change. It's going to be a profound change, I think.
Well, this is absolutely frivolous, but I was thinking some numerologist or some name guru should pay attention to the power of the name Helen in the history of South African political revolution. Helen Joseph, Helen Suzman,
yes,
Helen Zille, I mean, Helen of Troy. What is this leading to?
And in fact, you know, one of our judges, Marianne Tam, she's writing the biography of Helen Zille. So there we have it.